Welcome to the GenX Experience, the podcast that celebrates the unique journey of 80s kids navigating midlife. I'm your host, Blythe Alperin. Each episode, my guests and I will share with you the unique differences that define our generation and how we are navigating those differences in the real world. Join me for laughs, insights, and a sense of community. Let's embrace the GenX Experience together. Welcome back to the GenX Experience. This is episode 51 and the second part of our two-part series on talking about our topic for the month was why is it so hard to make friends in midlife? And today I have a really cool conversation with 4 women I met through Real Roots Dinner Club. And no, this is not a sponsored video for Real Roots, but if y'all are listening and want to sponsor the podcast, I'm not going to say no. Hint, hint. Anyway, but I met them through the dinner club and they wanted to be on the podcast, which I'm so eternally grateful for. And I think it's a perfect conversation for them too, because we all had to put ourselves out there to meet each other and got so very lucky. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about, I have Karla, Krys, Tia, and Lekesh, and we are going to talk about our different experiences, why we think it's so hard, some new thoughts come up too about like the different challenges. We talk about how we met, other groups that we've used, and what you can do really to just like make friends in midlife. And the advice I think was really great. And they definitely all came up with things that I was like, oh, that's a really great point. I didn't think about that. So enough of my blabbering. Let's get into my conversation with Karla, Lekesh, Tia, and Krys. Hello, my fellow Gen Xers. This is Editing Blythe. If you're watching, you're like, oh, different hair, no makeup, etc. Anyway, we have a little bit of a technical difficulty that occurs at about the 15 to 16 minute mark. So unfortunately, we lost Karla's video audio at this moment. I'm not sure what happened. I know she was having technical difficulties getting on, but I think what might have happened is my fault that I forgot to tell everybody when we're done recording, wait like a minute to make sure everybody's uploaded, because I think the rest of her audio video may not have made it onto the server of Riverside, the platform that I use. So I think we lost her and I apologize because she had a lot of good things to say. So I'm sorry, Karla, and I'm sorry to the rest of you. I've only had this happen once before. I mean, this is the first time I've had this many guests. So going forward, I will again make sure to remind my guests before we start recording to like not click off until I tell you everything is uploaded. So I apologize for that, but we still have the rest of the interview with Lekesh, Tia, and Krys. And yeah, that's all I got from Editing Blythe. Okay, as I mentioned in the intro, I have 4 lovely Gen X women on the podcast with me today that I all met through the same group, Real Roots. This is not a plug for Real Roots, but we will be talking about that. But we're going to talk about making friendships in midlife and why it's so challenging and our thoughts on that. So before we get into the conversation, I'm going to go, I want to say around the room, but if you're not watching this, you're like, what are you talking about? But that's what we're doing. We're going around the video room. Imagine a Zoom call, and I'll have each person introduce themselves and say whatever they like to about themselves or whatever they don't want to say about themselves. So I will start with you, Krys. The floor is yours.
So my name is Krys, and I'm in my 50s. I won't tell you what number specifically, but I am married. I have 2 grown children living in different parts of the United States. And I'm a Michiganian that moved to Atlanta about 2.5 years ago. And I do still work full time, but I do work remotely. And I think for now, that's probably.
Karla, you want to go next?
I'm Karla. I am just turned 60, and I've been in Atlanta since 1994, originally from the Washington, D.C. area. So I've been through a lot of these versions of different friends and friendships in Atlanta for a long time. I am still also working full time, and I am single.
All right. Tia, you're up.
Hi, Tia. I am in my 50s as well. I am single, no children except my fur baby. So if you saw him, he looks exactly like me. You would totally see the resemblance. I am in marketing and I work from home too, which I think is important to note. I am a Jersey girl, but I live in Georgia now and I love it. Would never leave. And I'm really into fitness, into Bravo. Judge me later. I don't care. I love Bravo. And going out, hanging out with friends over dinner.
And Lekesh, you're up.
Hi, my name is Lekesh. I am 47 and I have 1 son. He is an adult child. And I have 1 grandson. He's 6 months old, overseas now. I am originally from Springfield, Illinois, and I made my way to Atlanta about 10 years ago by way of San Diego and by Phoenix.
Very cool. So we have Gen Xers from every aspect. We have the youngest and then the top and the middle and then which is kind of that doesn't
And
happen all the time, I
and
don't
the
think.
oldest, the first
The
year.
oldest, which is good because it's good because we get because I don't know if you notice this online, but, like, when I hear people talk about our generation, well, 1, they don't know how old we are. They think we're boomers. I don't know why, but, and then they, like, get confused. They think that we're all the same, and, like, we have a lot of commonalities, but if you were born in '65 versus, like, 1980, there are some differences, different decades, so I think that's really cool. So let's get into the conversation. I'm gonna start because Tia brought something up that I think is really interesting that we didn't have to deal with when we were younger when it came to making friends because either we were in school, college, or, when we started working, we all had to go to the office. So now that we're working from home or we own our own businesses or whatever, it does, or we're retired or wherever we are in our lives, it does make it harder, I think, to um, do you think it's because we're stuck at home and we don't want to leave our home, or we just don't have the opportunities, or it takes more effort? What are your all's thoughts on that?
I think the fact that if you do work from home just is a factor to begin with. It wouldn't even matter what generation you were from. And even, a few Gen Zs that I have on my team, they want to come in the office to connect with people. So I think, most of us work at a minimum 40 hours a week, if not more. And you're spending your time looking at a screen like we're doing now, and then you disconnect. And reality is that it's either your pet, if you have one, or your spouse, or no one. When that environment is all that you know, it makes it very easy, some ways good, some ways bad, to be self reliant when it comes to your entertainment or fulfillment.
And I
Very true. And
it is
go ahead.
hard to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but working remote is great. I love the flexibility of it, but yes, you do lose some connection and connectivity going into an office. But I also think, moving beyond just being remote is when you don't have young children that are bringing you into an environment with other families and other people that you connected with when we were younger. And then in my case, living out of state where most of my family and friends are, my children in other states, it's difficult to meet people. Like other than like maybe a church, where else would you literally meet someone if you work remote and you don't have young children? So it is very challenging that way.
And I think too, as we get older or advance in our careers to different levels, when you're in your 20s, you are buddies with every other 20-year-old in your office, right? And then as you move up, now you've got to have a different responsibility and a different presentation in your work. So, like the people that I hang out with outside of work that are from work are very limited versus being these big groups where you're going out to these things, events. So, you do have to make much more of a conscious effort to figure out how to make friends outside of the work environment.
Very
I
true.
agree with that. And I think for myself, I work from home as well, and I have a company on the side. And it's the amount of time that we give to work, or that I personally give to work, and I'm not intentional a lot of times about making time outside of those hours to make friends or go out and build community. So that's one of my big issues is making the time. I think our generation is very driven career-wise, and so it's hard for us to turn that off sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, and then, if you are whether you're single or married, like, you also have the outside responsibilities of doing all the things that adulting requires, and it's exhausting. And then I also notice, because I've lived in Chicago and New York, is when you live in cities where public transportation is just so much more readily accessible, or you just walk out your door, it's easier to put the effort in. But here in Atlanta, you're like, "God, I gotta get in my car, and where am I driving, and what's the traffic gonna be?" And then as you get older, you're like, "Okay, do I really wanna get in my car and do all of that?" Yeah, so I feel like that can be an impediment for, as well as it's like people who live in small towns or are further out from, bigger cities that you do have to put in more effort as you get older.
I think Carla made a really good point too, or made me think of a really good point. When you are in your 20s, maybe your early 30s, just because the activity is the thing that draws you together, you're automatically friends. The person that you go out to drink with at work, like that's your good friend. I feel as you go decade to decade, the connotation and meaning of friend changes significantly. And so you might have individuals at work, as we were talking about before, that you might want to connect with, or you might have neighbors that you're okay with getting a coffee or two with, but is this someone that you would go on vacation with? Is this someone that you would call in an emergency? Is this someone when you have something really wonderful happen in your life? Are you picking up the phone to call that person? So I think even the meaning of friendship and what you're looking for as you advance in your life, that changes. And so that narrows the window.
Absolutely. And I feel like you segment friends too, like with as you're in work and you get a little more into it and you're like, I don't trust that person or I'm not gonna tell that person. Those are my work friends, but those are not my friends' friends.
Right.
So, you get a little and then and like Carla said, like if you get in a level of, power, you can't go hang out with all of your team because it feels weird or there's rules about that. So
Mhm.
so so I'll let's just bring in Real Roots to this conversation. So we all of us, that's how we met through the dinner club at Real Roots. What motivated you to, try a group, whether it was Real Roots or other groups? What motivated you to be like, okay, I'm gonna make the effort to go out and find people that I can hang out with and be friends with? Anybody want to go first?
Go first. So for me, again, moving into a new city, new state, no friends or family nearby. And I was just working, scrolling through Facebook and, are you looking for a friend group? I'm like, yes, I am, and are you, all the questions it was asking was literally what I was in my head thinking about is, trying to find a new group of friends. Is again, we talked, it's hard when you work remote and your family's not near you and you just don't have a connection. And I really wanted that. And so for me, I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? I walk away with no friend, or the best is I could make some friendships that would, really be wonderful. So for me, that was what I was looking for, is just spending time to connect. And there wasn't any other opportunity that I could see before me to make an effort to do it a different way. So it was just convenient.
Anyone else want to tackle that question?
Was motivated. I'm going to be honest. I didn't, and maybe that's a bad thing. I didn't really expect that I would get friends out of it. I was motivated, kind of like what Lakesh was saying, like just having a full time job, some side hustles, and things like that. All I was doing was working. Working and volunteering. That's all I was doing. And I was like, you need to start living life. And so I was attracted to it to just find like minded individuals. Even if I only had that one day a week where I detached from responsibilities and just connected with like minded people, had a great meal, had some laughs, a couple drinks, wonderful. That was kind of the whole of my expectation when I initially joined.
Mine was after a life shakeup, and my friends are nearby. I have friends in the area, however, that we're at different phases in our lives. My best friend is only 12 minutes away, but she has a child that's under 10 years old. That bond it starts to kind of, break a little bit when you're in those different phases, and so I saw Real Roots as a connection to people that were in the same phase of life as me, empty nesters or people that are older, like to travel, doing things like that, so I found it interesting for that point.
Yep. And Carla, I think you were trying to answer before, but might have been on mute.
That's okay. So what I started to say is I kind of had a bit of an aha moment last year. Like I think for a couple of years I'd been feeling something and I really wasn't sure what it was, that there was something missing. And then it was just kind of like I had the recognition that over probably the last 10 years or maybe a little bit more, that my friendship group was getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I was down to just kind of a handful of people that I felt like I could just call up and go, "Hey, you busy? Are you available for dinner tonight?" And that's when I was like, well, wait, there's definitely something that's missing. And that's where I'm like, okay, I need to make a concerted effort to start making new friends and doing things that are more social. And that's where I came across Real Roots came up. And I've done, I took pickleball lessons last fall. So trying to get more involved in that. So just trying to, and then I signed up for dinner club to meet more people. So I'm definitely not feeling that loneliness, or I don't want to say it's loneliness, but that missing thing that I was feeling last year anymore. So it's definitely like all of this activity has definitely helped.
Yeah, I was doing the I feeling antisocial, and I was blaming it on my perimenopause, which, I mean, I blame everything on that because it's an easy scapegoat, but yeah, you do start to notice, like, you're, like, either lonely or, like, "I'm being very antisocial, and only person I'm talking to is my dog, and that's not a person." So Starts to question your sanity. Have you so you tried you call yourself pickleball. Has anyone tried any other groups besides Real Roots or, like, any apps or any like, anybody tried Bumble, BFF, or I don't know what other apps there are out there?
I did dinner with strangers.
How was that?
Which it was fun, actually. I mean, I did it twice, and I met someone who I continue to hang out with. I kind of liked that format as well because it was I love going out to dinner, so it was that dinner, meeting new people, but what I learned was a little bit of a challenge for me, although I think it's still great, and I'll continue to do it, is, if the dinner didn't go well, you don't have to worry about meeting those same people next week and feeling like you kind of like didn't finish the process. If you connect with a person or two, that particular app allows you to go person by person and say, did you have a connection? It's almost like a dating app in a sense. And if you say you had a connection with, say, I had a connection with Blythe, they'll message you. And then you can say, I had a connection with Tia. And then we're able to communicate on our own. So I found it to be useful. And I did meet a really, really cool person that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, Time Left used to be like that where you first they just had dinners, now they've had coffee, drinks, and then runs, and it used to be the same thing where you could just yes or no, and now they just put everybody together and you decide whether you like I don't not classify, but you're like, pick their personality traits. I'm like, "That's weird," and what if there's someone there I don't wanna talk to, or I don't remember everybody, but I remember the people I wanted to talk to, so yeah, I don't some of these programs I think run better than others, but I haven't has anybody else tried Dinner with Strangers or Time Left or no? Okay. Or Bumble BFF?
They usually have, like, the community events, but, it's a lot it's usually a very large group, and it's hard to connect with people.
Yeah. Well, and I also find it interesting to go to things sometimes, and then people will be like, "Yes," and then we're matching or yeah, and then you message them and it's like crickets or
Right.
I'm like, "Why did you say you wanted to hang out if you like, if you
Mhm.
don't like me, I don't care," or if it's
Yes.
too far or whatever. I think that's also a challenge too. At least I notice that here, right? Is that people they always kind of, I mean, pick Midtown or Buckhead, which is great, but not for everybody. And I think it'd be nice if they did it, in Woodstock or Dunwoody or like in the burbs so that people are not driving an hour. I mean, you can do that in 2 miles here, but for anyone that doesn't live in Atlanta, driving here is awful. And yeah, it's an impediment to going anywhere, to making friends, to making plans. I don't know if in other cities that is all I'm assuming that's also a challenge where they plan events that are supposed to be centrally located, but,
Right.
yeah. And then sometimes the tech, like Real Roots tech is not the best.
No,
No.
they're not.
They have some, like, new things they started, and I signed up for one, and then I was like, "Oh, it says 45 is, like, the age cutoff," so I messaged them, and then they just changed the stuff, and they're like, "No, you have to go back, but here's a code for 2 free things." I'm like,
Yes, so they reimagined it.
Yeah, I'm like, "But I can't do anything." So,
Yeah, strange.
Real Roots, if you're listening, please get better IT. We love you,
A
but
great concept.
it is,
Very
yeah.
great concept. I've yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Well, speaking of that's another great point. I think a lot of people forget when they talk about not just Gen X, it could also be, millennials as well, not necessarily boomers, but we are at different stages of our life. Like there are people that are in their 40s and 50s with younger kids. There are people that their kids are grown. There are people that don't have kids. There are people like grandparents. There are people that are taking care of parents. So trying to navigate that too, the different stages that we're all in that I don't know about you, but when I was thinking about my life at this age when I was younger, I don't think I would have I think I pictured everyone like, "This is what you do. You go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, et cetera." And then reality hits, you're like, "No, that's not actually what everybody does," and at different times. So I think that can also make it harder to make friends or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I'll say I've been in we did try I remember now, I did do the meetups. I don't know if you guys have meetup, but we did start that, initially when we moved here, my husband and I. And some of them were interesting, but the hard part is, again, to your point, Blythe, in our age group, when you're moving into the 50s, early 60s, kind of like in late 40s, like with Lakesh, there are people who were already retired and they've got nothing but time. They're not working at all. And so they want to meet at 10 a.m. or they want to do something during the week. And you're like, no way, it can't happen. or then you've got the folks that have grandchildren that, my weekends are taken because I'm watching the grandchildren. So the other challenge of being in this age group is definitely the difficulty in meeting people, right? But the second part of it is, to that point, everyone is not in the same boat, right? Like when you're young and you're younger and you're just starting your career, most people don't have children. You're very career hungry. It's a whole different situation, right? But when you get older, it's just difficult because people are they are in different places in their life. And so it is more difficult. It is more challenging. On top of the fact it's just challenging, it's even more challenging to meet people that are in the same stage of the life in their 50s and, early 60s and like that. So it's a good point, Blythe.
Yes, and I'm gonna put you on the spot again, Krys. So, because you were mentioning that you and your husband are using Meetup, I know that's also hard too if you wanna make, like, couple friends. Because I know my sister and her husband, well, my sister probably made more of the effort. She's always telling my brother-in-law to, like, make some friends for like, couple friends. Like, that's also hard too, is to if you wanna have couple friends and, you have kids at different stages or you don't have kids, like, how I don't know if there's any groups that make that easy either.
Oh, that was really difficult. That's why the meetup, we went to a couple of them together and they were fine. We met nice people, but again, very different ages, very, very diverse. And so it was hard for us to just connect with, to your point, like a couple. And then, so we kind of stopped doing that because and they were really far away from where anything we were interested in was all like in Alpharetta. So for TUT, it would have been great. But, when you're coming from like Atlantic Station and you're going to drive all the way to Alpharetta, it is really tough to do that. So we just kind of like fell out of doing it. And that's when like the real roots popped up. But again, it's not, men don't do that. They don't have a real roots like men thing because they probably would never take the initiative. So I have, there are a couple of friends in real roots that I have met. So Claire and Jen each have a husband and we will do things with them. So thankfully there's at least two out of the group that have, someone we can go do things together. But yeah, another element, another layer of challenge, right? It's
Yeah.
all challenging.
I do find it easier, I think, as women, and granted, I'm only speaking from being a woman, but like I feel like it's easier for us to. There are groups, because it's very big on like women only. So there's groups for us to go to. You could just go up to some woman in a coffee shop or a store and be like, "Oh my god, I love your shoes, I love this," or whatever, and start a conversation and maybe hang out. But I wonder for me. I mean, I have a brother who's divorced, and like I know it's not easy for him. I mean, he has a daughter, but, like, I often wonder, like, how do men do this? Because, yes, they can go to, like, probably dinner with strangers, time left, nice to meet, but there's other organizations, like, I wonder how they do this because I'm sure if they're, like, at the gym and you go up to a
Yeah.
guy, they might get the wrong idea or
Right?
just weird. Like,
Was into hobby clubs, so Porsche Club or more things like that, but I don't see those types of options for women, and I would actually be more interested in some of their clubs than some of the women's clubs. I like to drive.
no, that's a really good point too. It's like, yeah, it's not yeah, it some clubs just make it exclusively for women, exclusively for men, and it's like people have different interests, especially as Gen X, our interests are all over the place. So, yeah. I mean, at least I wonder too, like, if there wasn't technology, like, what would we all be doing? Like, we just
Right.
sitting home and, I don't know, hanging out with our pets or I don't yeah, I mean, as annoying as technology is sometimes, like, it's also a good thing. Yeah.
My issue with it is I feel like technology has replaced real, connection between friends, and so we get to a point where we think sharing memes or clips, that's maintaining the friendship, and I don't think it really does. So, it shouldn't replace that person-to-person connection is where I'm at.
That
Yeah.
reminds me of my son who we have like a family chat and he thinks if he shares the videos of what he did on the weekend that he's communicating. And
Right.
us, the older generation, we're like, well, that doesn't count. Like I need to hear your voice. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? I'm communicating all the time. No, no, you're not. So yeah,
Yeah.
to your point, Lakesh, like technology was great. It's great. It's twofold, right? It's good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. So
Yeah, it's so easy to just see a video and be like, "Let me send this to this person." And sometimes it's
yeah,
like it's nice because 'cause you're just sending it to a bunch of people, you don't have to have 25 of the same conversations, but yeah, it does there are moments like I have a couple friends my best friend, she doesn't live here, so when we get on the phone, we're on the phone for hours, and I can hear her husband in the background being like, "You've been on the phone for, like, 3 hours." That's because all we do is talk through text most of the time, or my other friend I have here, Rebecca, that you guys will get to meet at some point. The same thing, we won't talk to each other for a while, and then we'll be on the phone for hours, and we keep telling each other to shut up, but we don't, because it gets late. But yeah, it's technology, like, it can make you lazy at this, and it stops the way that, well, it's the same with dating, like, guys are like, "I don't wanna call you." I'm like, "That's how we grew up." So
Mhm.
but then
Well,
I get it.
I'm that girl, I don't want you to call me.
I mean, I don't wanna date, so I don't have to worry about that, but yeah,
Kind of dead.
yeah, I've working on finding friends and, like, cultivating that. That's about as much as I can. Well, I just like women better. No offense, men, if you're listening. I know I have male listeners. I'm sorry. You guys drive me crazy. Like, I just like women so much better at this point.
But that is another complexity though, right? Because if we talked about the one end of the spectrum, if you are married like Chris and you can't obviously if you're married, you can't always be going out to your, friend groups. There's time that you need to spend with your husband. So it's easier that you have that connection. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're single and you are looking, I am not one, but I'm just saying, if you're single and you are looking, that's an investment, right? You have to find time to find those individuals, date those individuals. And that's just one segment of your life. So you're compounding that with work and the kids or your fur babies or whatever the case might be, and then dating. So then that makes it even more difficult that if you've started a friendship, friendships take just as much, if in some cases, even more investment than a relationship. So then how do you manage that in the midst of all the responsibility? You're kind of in the pocket when you're a Gen X, in the full range of Gen X's. We're in the pocket. Right? Our time is split on so many different levels that, friendships sometimes fall to the wayside. I kind of freak out sometimes when I miss our, dinners or whatever. Cause I'm like, not joking when I say, guys, don't kick me out of the group because I know the more you miss those connections, something happens, when you get together in person. If you keep missing that, Blythe and Lekesh might start to make a stronger, then I come into and I'm missing the inside jokes so it's a challenge. It's a challenge when, we're in this interesting phase of life where either married or dating or whatever just makes friendships so much more difficult.
And on
Yeah.
top of that, the other layer that we're starting to all feel is aging parents. So
Yeah.
caring for your elderly parent. And now you've got that pulling on you as well, right? Like taking care of their finances and doctor's appointments and, all of that on top of it. So you may not have kids, but your aging parents, you're really not going to meet a friend group through your aging parent. Like when you had young children, or at least in that scenario, you could go into their school and you meet people in the same boat. You don't really, I mean, unless you're at the assisted living with of other people that have aging parents, but it's again another pull on your time.
Yeah, I'm actually helping my mother build her friend group back up. So when she has clubs and whatnot, she doesn't really drive on the highway. I'm driving her to her event. That takes up half my Saturday because I have to sit there and wait for her. So even outside of just caring for them physically, if they're in the same situation you are trying to build up their friend group and you're their transportation,
Yeah, there goes your time.
it's another factor.
They really should have groups, like, or I mean, it doesn't have to be in person, but, it could be online, which I know that, but because when there are so many people going through, you guys know I've lost both my parents, but when I was going through that 5-year period, it was it's really hard, and sometimes you could use people that are going through the same thing, just to get some poor or, like, information or someone to complain about and be like, "Oh my god, this happened, or this doctor or this parent or whatever." I'm surprised there probably are some support groups somewhere, but they should probably put those in like, take your parent to their event and stay for your own little.
Yeah.
Exactly. That would
Yeah.
be fun to think about.
And I'm gonna throw aging ourselves on top of the aging parents. Sometimes I just don't feel like it. I may have forgotten to. Yes, yes, I'm exhausted. My estrogen has dropped, and I might not be the best person to sit around today. Yeah. I think aging for me personally, going through perimenopause and those pendulums that I go through mentally and physically, that is a lot of my reasoning sometimes that I back off and I don't do some of the things that I should do, like going out and making friends and being social. I don't think people wanna be around my stinky attitude.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing is like, "Oh, I can't make it. Oh, this is canceled." I'm like, "Darn." right?
Hey,
Where and I
the
remember too
gamers are
being
on.
yeah, being young, right? And you'd go to work and like, "What'd you do on the weekend?" And you had to have something because if you didn't, you just why we cared so much. Now I'm like, "I didn't do anything," and it was freaking awesome. And no one's like, "Really?" They're like, "Really? Me too." I mean, it's so yeah.
Yes.
And then also sometimes you think we're like, "Okay, if I do something on Saturday and Sunday, then I'm gonna be tired on Monday." So,
Yes.
yeah, nobody prepares us for this time. Not that we would listen anyways. Would anybody in their 20s or 30s be like, "Let me hear your sage advice about being in your 40s and 50s?" No, we'd be like,
You wouldn't see it that way.
"No."
You'd have no concept of that. You have the sense that the friends that you have in your 20s are the friends you're gonna have forever, and if you're fortunate enough that that's the case, um, not to say like a sad story, but, my best friend from my 20s passed away a few years ago, and so who would have ever expected that? Like, I would have never expected that. We were supposed to be like, the old ladies with the big hats, after her
Right,
kids went
right.
to college and whatever, and being on cruise ships all the time. And so that's another factor because we are in an age range where you don't expect it, but friends pass away and they take your history with you. You like it's like almost like a marriage getting a divorce. Like you're starting all over. There's not that person that knew you, when you were in your 20s and made really stupid mistakes and can go back and share those stories. And so that quality that is in that relationship, when you're seeking new relationships, you look for it. It doesn't come instantly. So that's another factor. As Gen X, we deal with it. You would never think about,
No.
prior to this age range.
Yeah, because you can lose friends, they can get sick and pass away or something, or through divorce that you sometimes you're like, "Okay, so I lost that friend because of whatever the situation is," or sometimes you outgrow each other or your lives move in different directions or you have a falling out or something, and sometimes it's repairable and sometimes you're just like, "Yeah, no," or, so yeah, you just more layers of, getting older
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
yeah, it's just unexpected things.
Exactly.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that can keep going too as we get older. I mean, I have, relatives who are, obviously much older, they're 80s or 90s, and, a lot of times they're not seeing people because they can't leave their home or they don't have the transportation or they're not well enough, and it's like, "Okay, this is so much fun to look forward to." So you kinda have to, like, yeah, figure stuff and then you have people moving to the villages, and they have a better social life than probably 20-year-olds do at this point. Things going on there. I'm like, my dad lived there for a brief time and the conversations we had to have with him, just like this. I remember I was in New Jersey once. I was for like a job interview. And I was sitting at the hotel restaurant and the people were talking about the villages. And I'm like, okay, the fact that I'm in New Jersey and there's some very strange conversations going on about some people doing some things. You're just like, okay, this place is legendary. They should well, I think there is a documentary, but I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe when we're in our 80s and whatever, we'll be having this
Bring
is
it.
more fun than now, or we'll be like back in our in our 20s making just as many bad decisions as and hopefully not remembering them either. So we're getting close to like wrapping it up. Is there any if you could give advice to anyone that's listening who's like, I kind of want to make friends, I don't know, what would you say to them that would be like a first step or what you recommend or any thoughts? Who wants to go first?
Maybe step outside your comfort zone like you're going to have to. And, sometimes it's hard to learn new people. Like, it's hard. Like, we had a big friend group in Michigan and all our kids grew up together and stuff. And they're like family. Right. And then now I have to make new friends. And it's hard. Right. Because you're like, okay, I got to remember things to talk about and I got to, be on my best behavior and, what all that stuff. Right. It's hard to like put yourself out there and meet a group of people you've never met. But you're not gonna make any kind of a friendship unless you put yourself out there and be outside of that comfort zone and go do things that you wouldn't normally do to just be able to try it and meet new people.
Yes, absolutely. Lakesh, Tia, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Mine is keeping an open mind, to the different people that you meet. And I've made a lot of friends just by making sure that people know that I see them, acknowledge them, smile at them, and people are drawn to that.
I love that.
I would say something that we didn't do when we were younger and probably should do more now in friendships because we do it in every other area. Just be your authentic self. It's okay. You're not going to click with everyone. You spent decades trying to know yourself and love yourself and accept yourself and you're perfect exactly how you are. So if you are authentic and it doesn't click initially. Like everyone else said, keep trying. You'll find those people that connect with you, and it'll be more meaningful and a deeper relationship.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be open to experimenting and be okay with the fact that, yeah, not everyone's gonna like you, you're not gonna like everyone else, and that's also kind of refreshing because it was exhausting as a kid, like, like, "Do they like me? What if they don't like me? Everybody hates me." No, but, you overanalyzed everything instead of probably being present. We care too much about what everybody thought and, now I'm like, "Whatever." Right, try to be or whatever. There's still some times where I'm like, "Okay, am I talking too much? Am I not talking much?" I'm in my head as an introvert and yeah. So, well, thank you guys. I have one well, if you have an answer to this, great. If not, I'll just edit this part out. But I'm trying to start a new thing where we give like little recommendations of things we're loving. It could be Gen X related. It could be just something you're enjoying in your life that you want to share with anyone. So if anyone has any things they'd like to share, now is the time. If not, it's totally cool.
I'm enjoying going back and watching 80s movies because I don't think anybody can do it better than 80s movies.
Absolutely.
Been seeing a lot of I don't know what you call them, like clubs or bars that are leaning back into vinyl.
Mhm.
And so you can go up and select your record and put your headphones on and listen. And sometimes they'll play a few songs out. And obviously, most of them are from our generation, and so that's a really cool thing that I'm seeing popping up around our area.
That sounds fun. Yeah, I wanna get back into vinyl. I'm thinking about asking for a record player for my birthday, but yeah, vinyl's great. It's just something I was like, "Let's try something new and different," and because I had a few things last time, there's some, like, artists I keep seeing online, and I'm like they're, like, very they're Gen Z, very young, and they love '80s music, and I'm just like, "I love you. This is awesome." And, like, there's one his name is Reat Stimson, if you look him up. He literally is like everything he does is '80s. It'll have, like, a headphone, Walkman on, and he's got, like,
That's
the
funny.
hair and he's got the short shorts on, and he did one thing where it was, like, just triggered a camp memory, which I comment on a thing is he just had, like, very tight jeans on. He turned around and his hair and his earring, and I was like, "My god, it reminded me of this counselor that I had a massive crush with on the one time I went to camp." Don't remember the guy's name, just remember the saxophone earring and the wavy little hair. So, yeah, it was just, like, kinda fun to share. And then have you guys seen before we close, I'll just ask one quick have you seen the Esprit sweatshirts that have come back at Costco?
Yes, what is
Apparently
going what is it?
Spring.
Costco now has the for, like, $17, which was, like, so much cheaper than they were back in the day. They have a spring sweatshirts, like the white with the rainbow letters, blue. People are going crazy, and then there's, like, massive debates, but, like, "Well, I didn't have one as a kid because I wasn't rich," or, like, "That's not for goth ki" like, it's becoming a whole thing. Some Gen Xers are acting like boomers,
Nice.
but yeah, but if you just Google Esprit and Costco, there and some resellers are buying them and, like, selling them for more than the $17, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
That's cute. I love it.
That's an idea for the next time we all go out. Everybody has to
yeah,
get it.
Yeah, bump those things up.
I'm like, "Do I need a Costco membership?" Yeah, I want them to bring back, like, Benetton or, like, Outback Red or some other they just yeah, just shopping at Costco for
too
clothes.
funny.
Yeah. Well, thank you all, Beverly Hills, yeah, exactly. Thank you all, Krys, Karla, Tia, Lekesh, thank you for being guinea pigs on the podcast, for being on here, I really appreciate it, and it's been so as anyone listening, you can see I've met 4 amazing women, I'm, like, counting in my head, and I've met some other women in some other groups as well, so don't be afraid to, yeah, get out of your comfort zone, be yourself, and go meet people because you never know, you might have some fun people to go drinking with, go eating with, go do whatever with. So just try it. Get out of your house.
Your house.
Get out of the sweatpants, get out of your house. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah.
It was
Thanks,
fun.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.
And that concludes our July topic of why is it so hard to make friends in midlife? Thank you to Karla, Lakesh, Tia, and Krys for being on the podcast. I feel so fortunate to have met these lovely ladies through Real Roots Dinner Club. It's just so nice to go to dinner, to go to drinks, to go to things and just have interesting people to talk to. I hope you learned some really cool things, had some great insight, found things to relate to. Another glimpse into, our generation and why we're just so freaking cool. Everybody wants to be us. Do they? Do we care if they do? No, actually, we don't. But no, seriously. I'm really thankful that they wanted to be on the podcast and talk about this topic because I think it is something that we struggle with as we get older. I don't think we're the first generation that has dealt with it, and of course we won't be the last. And hopefully you found something to relate to and are inspired to get out there, get out of your house and get out of your sweatpants, as I said, and go meet some people. Really, it just takes a little bit of effort to look online. And if you are a man who heard this and you're like, wait a second, I want to share my experience or I want to share my take, please let me know. You can find my email in the show notes. You can also reach out to me on Instagram or Threads or TikTok. It's the Gen X Experience Pod. I'm happy to talk to. I'd love to hear your experience too, even if it's just something I share in a post or whatever, because I do think men have some different challenges. I mean, I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I'm really thankful to have this conversation. And so, what is coming up in August besides my birthday? So I'm not sure what we'll be talking about. I have two conversations I'm recording in August that I was going to do for September, but I think I might be doing them in August. So stay tuned for that. We also have the announcement of our book club pick. I posted some thoughts, some ideas, and I think it might be narrowed down to either Generation X, like the book that kind of defined who we are, although I don't think you can define us, hence why we're called X. And there's another book by a woman called Generation X with a J instead of a G. That was also suggested. So stay tuned for that announcement coming soon. As always, you can keep up with the podcast on Instagram and TikTok. And of course, we are on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And yeah, as always, if you have any suggestions or thoughts that you would like me to share or topics you want me to cover, please let me know. I'm always happy to hear from my fellow Gen Xers because that's why I do this podcast, to get to know you, to get to talk to you, to give us a platform to just be our snarky, sarcastic, middle aged selves. So until next time, my fellow Gen Xers, don't you forget about me because I won't forget about you. And next time you hear from me, I will be a year older. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Gen X Experience. If today's episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it on social media or with a friend. We'll see you back here next time.